I think a dangerous situation is developing across the deep south as we look at it, some tornadoes. This is today's outlook. This would be through Friday and early Saturday, but look what happens into Saturday. An explosive area of severe weather across the south. We're going to talk about that. The tornado risk going up. You've got a hashed area out here in the Mississippi, also parts of Alabama into Louisiana. That means there's a significant risk of tornadoes also into southern parts of Arkansas, and that pushes east as we head into Saturday. So very, very active this weekend and a dangerous situation, I believe, across the south. We're going to dig into some of these details, what's causing it, where it's going, and all of that. Plus, we're going to look at the future radar. And I do want to talk about the cold that's ahead as we head into January. A lot of folks here talking about the snow, wanting to know about the snow. We're going to look at all those details in this video. Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. I'm Travis. If you're brand new to the channel, I used to work in the industry on television as a chief meteorologist. I got out of that business years ago. I found myself looking at these types of models all the time, and I decided to start making YouTube videos. Just over the last couple of days, we flew through 14,000 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for subscribing, and I appreciate you supporting the channel here. Let's talk about the weather now. That's why you're here. We've got this piece of energy. And I talked about energy yesterday. Someone said, what is energy? Have you ever seen a wave move through the water? That's energy, right? So that's the atmosphere. And we've got this energy, this wave, if you will, that is literally propagating through the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. It's not moving at the surface. You're seeing that wave move in. And this is a negatively tilted trough is what we call it here. This is very ugly looking, in my opinion. And quite nasty too, as you see those height lines get really packed here. That means those winds in the mid and upper levels are going to be fast. You're going to have a strong jet streak move through, and that's going to drive, in my opinion, the tornado threat heading through the day on Saturday. Let's get a little bit closer. First, we'll talk about what's going on today. Severe weather possible here across southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, even into the panhandle of Florida with some showers and storms. But again, the big risk goes up on Saturday. This is the kind of day where if you are anywhere, honestly, in these areas, you need to stay weather aware, and not just during the afternoon, but overnight, especially as these storms start to line up and move off to the east and as far north as the Tennessee-Kentucky border through the overnight into early Sunday morning. There may not be a lot of buoyancy up here, in other words, lift in the atmosphere that would cause those big thunderstorms, but still, I think there's a significant risk. The Storm Prediction Center has outlined this area across East Louisiana, also southern parts of Louisiana. I would watch out here too across the Gulf Coast, but that significant area with the hashed look here, that's a serious threat for tornadoes. And when you see that, any type of hashed marks, whether it's for hail or tornadoes, you definitely want to be weather aware and pay close attention. And look, just because you're in the brown into parts of Alabama, I think that tornado threat still shifts to the east and also across East Texas once again, and as far north as Tennessee. We've had tornadoes during much lower risk days. This is one of those events that I think, unfortunately, will be remembered for years to come just because of the impact that we're seeing. And you know, this isn't that uncommon. In fact, we usually see a spike in the tornado season across the deep south around December. And here we go, this year certainly not letting down. Severe weather on Sunday moves east. A lot of this over here will be overnight, but then it will really start to pick up heading into the afternoon from the Piedmont of Virginia, so Roanoke, Lynchburg, Danville, south into Greensboro, even out to Raleigh, Charlotte, Columbia, down into East Georgia, over towards Savannah, Augusta. Strong damaging winds, even some tornadoes possible with this. Let's dig into this a little bit more here. This is what we're watching, this jet streak that's moving through West Texas. There's your upper low, your energy, if you will, and some spin in the atmosphere. That's another thing that's going to cause these rotating updrafts is the difference in wind direction with height. So as we go through this, I want to show you in the mid and upper levels, especially here, your winds are coming out of the south and they veer out of the southwest out ahead of our low, our upper low here, and that's going to cause the problem. So with a southeast wind out ahead of this and also on the front right side of wherever your jet streak is, that's typically where you see the strongest thunderstorms, and that looks to be from East Texas. Look at it marching east now over here into Alabama, eventually up into Tennessee, because that jet streak, and look, that negatively tilted trough is going to continue to swing to the east, even through the early morning hours of Sunday, and then we target the Carolinas. Another component to this severe weather outbreak is our Gulf moisture moving in. These are low-level winds picking up 30 to 40 knots or so at about 850 millibars, in some cases close to 50 to 60. That's just pushing in that Gulf moisture. Dew points are going to be on the way up, adding fuel to these thunderstorms as they move through Mississippi, Louisiana, and eventually into Alabama. Look how far north those lower level winds really pick up across Tennessee. That again is just pushing those dew points up out ahead of our upper low, which is going to cause all that lift. Now, I remember in one of my thermodynamic meteorology classes, or maybe severe weather, one of the things we learned, anything over a 1 on the significant tornado parameter, is something you got to pay attention to. We're seeing numbers here that are approaching 4, 5, even 7, 8 here across southern parts of Mississippi and Louisiana heading into Saturday night. And look how that tornado risk really starts to pick up across Alabama too into the early morning hours of Sunday. So this timestamp is Eastern time, so take off an hour for Central time, but still you get the idea that nocturnal tornado risk will continue, and it will also continue into early Sunday morning. I think you got to pay attention into Georgia. The limiting factor would be the stability here, but there's going to be enough dynamics in the atmosphere. That's the wind shear. Also, dew points are going to be going up. We've just got a lot of energy into the atmosphere, too, in the form of that water vapor coming off the Gulf Coast. Look at your temperatures on Saturday, climbing almost to 60 up here into Kentucky and Tennessee, so it's no wonder we're seeing that severe threat here. One of the limiting factors I think that could save places like Atlanta into the upstate of South Carolina and North Carolina would be some cooler air that is in place. That tries to get scoured out. You can kind of see that. So we go from 40s to 60s really quick out ahead of the front heading into Sunday morning, and then the severe threat is on. And you can see how some of that cooler air gets trapped into the mountain valleys of Virginia, North Carolina, even West Virginia. But west of the mountains, that warm air surging north, and it really surges into the coastal plain of the Piedmont of North Carolina and Virginia heading into Sunday, and that's the reason our severe risk goes up here. Timing your precipitation now, first across Texas through the morning hours, just some showers, maybe a few embedded thunderstorms with this, but your severe risk really starts to increase as we head into East Texas sometime late Saturday morning. And it could start as early as 9, 10, 11 o'clock here, especially across far East Texas. That's where our thunderstorms will get going first, and then those will pick up. So watch out from Texarkana. I think you also need to watch out the very southern parts of Oklahoma, southeast Oklahoma especially, and then into Arkansas as we move into the afternoon and evening hours. Here's a view a little bit further to the east, that same time frame. Let's back up just a little bit. Once we go through the morning hours, we will get some showers starting to break out also across Louisiana, and some of these could go severe early. Again, remember, there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of things going on here. You got your lower level winds coming in like this, your upper level winds out of the southwest. So wind shear with these, that would cause the storms to rotate. And then as we head into the afternoon, your storms start to blossom here across Alabama, Mississippi, and then your real threat at this point would probably be here across Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and then some of these over here could go severe too and tornadic as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. But I think back in here would be your highest risk by 4, 5, 6 o'clock. And then along the Gulf Coast, don't turn your back on these either. Some of these cells moving in off the Gulf could also be quite strong. Once we move into the 9, 10, 11 o'clock hour, you can see these storms moving off to the east, and then by midnight, they're moving through Alabama. So that's the thing, right? We're talking about severe thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds. All severe modes are on the table for this event, and even into the panhandle of Florida. We could see strong storms forming into the Gulf and moving inland, so this is going to be a really active night into early Sunday morning. And you can see by 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Eastern here across Georgia, we're just watching these storms to our west. And while I do believe they will weaken, I don't think you stop keeping an eye on them as that risk continues, I think, into early Sunday morning, and then it starts to pick up across North Carolina as this moves off to the east through Sunday morning. Here we go into the Appalachians. Again, some of these could be strong too. The limiting factor would be some of the cooler air here, but watch out into the upstate of South Carolina, here into western North Carolina, down into the Piedmont. This is where it really starts to get active, and then into Georgia. I think really south of Atlanta, once we head into Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening, here along the coastal plain of South Carolina, the Piedmont of North Carolina, and then up into Virginia too. You can't turn your back on this area because that severe risk is pretty far to the north as we're watching all of that moisture get pulled in, and pretty warm temperatures too, so a lot of instability. A lot going on there, I know. Let's talk about the cold, too. There is going to be a big change on the way as we head into January. This is the upper level heights. That's the thickness of the atmosphere, literally. If it's red, that means we're abnormally tall. The atmosphere literally is higher because it's warmer than average. Okay, so it's going to be colder up here across the North Pole than it's going to be here across South Carolina. That's not what this map is showing. It's just showing you the anomalies. And the below normal heights, as we look at the atmosphere, is here across the East Coast with some ridging across Greenland, which is typical for a blocking pattern to drop the cold air into the East Coast. And the question remains still for me is, do we see some type of snowstorm? I honestly don't know. And if someone is telling you you're going to get a snowstorm, especially in the south, no one knows this far out. I mean, heck, I have no idea if you'll see a snowstorm. But I do know one thing. You've got to have a cold weather pattern in place. And you kind of see that through January versus what we're seeing right now, which is significantly different. Here's your European snow output all the way through January the 26th. I'm looking at this 1-inch snow line, which actually is more like this. Pretty far to the south. So these are the ensembles. This just gives you an idea of where we might see snow, at least the chances are. I was looking at some of the ensemble members to sort of look at where they're targeting some storms, and are they even showing snowstorms? I mean, some of these models are going nuts, right? Putting some big snows down across the Ohio Valley, the upper Midwest. Some, not so much. So it's one of the reasons that you don't want to look at any particular model run and go, this is what's happening. But the fact that we're even seeing some of these members showing a heavy snow event always has my attention, because they're not showing it right now. But clearly we're seeing that as we head into January. Let's look at some of the details across the rest of the country. We talked all about the south. We've got our storm across the west that's moving in. Warm temperatures up across the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes. An area of low pressure will move here as we head into Sunday. That could put some snow. We're going to get into that a little bit closer in just a moment. And then that rain moves into the northeast. Our next system moving across the plains. That could put some light snow back here across South Dakota into parts of Nebraska. And then that moves east as well. Then there's some question as to what happens with this next week. We're still pretty far out on this. The GFS doesn't want to do much with it. And then it wants to bring another system across, putting some snow here through the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic. I don't know which one I believe yet. This is the European. It takes our low, really blows it up off the East Coast as we head into next week, and doesn't do much with anything moving through the south. Still pretty far out on that. More to come. High pressure losing its grip across the northeast. Rain moving in. We'll see those rain showers continue to increase as we head into Saturday evening. Maybe a little bit of ice, freezing rain across southern parts of Canada here. North of Maine, there could even be some freezing rain. Also into upstate Maine. A little bit of ice here, but otherwise, blowtorch is on. Again, we talked about all that severe weather to the south. Ahead of that system, that warm air surging north all the way into the northeast. We've got rain into Canada now as that warm air really pushes in. Kind of a sloppy ski weekend for sure. Some underdeveloped snow moves here into the northeast. And then we do start to turn colder, though, as we head into Monday, with a little bit of snow trying to mix in here on the backside of this system. Our next weather maker holds off until about Monday or Tuesday. This could bring some snow. This is something that I think you watch here. Do you get an area of low pressure developing on the coast? Could that put some heavier snow into the northeast? The jury's still out on that one. Temperatures heading into Saturday morning, a lot warmer. Well, not really here, but a lot warmer here. We're in the 30s versus the 20s and teens. And then there comes the warm air as we head into Saturday afternoon. You can start to see that surging north out ahead of our system, pushing way up into Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We're back up to the 60s for Trenton, even into places like Allentown, Philadelphia, Harrisburg. We're warming up nicely back towards Cleveland, Akron, Erie, Pennsylvania, even pushing into the mid-50s. A little cooler over toward Rochester and even Buffalo, still in the 40s. We may crack 50, though, in Buffalo. And then heading into Sunday, temperatures start to cool down. That will be the trend as we head into next week, too, as we go back into the 20s and 30s here across the Northeast. A little bit further to the west, a wet day on Friday into Saturday as low pressure moves through the Great Lakes. Maybe some snow mixing in on the west side of this. We've talked about this for the last couple of days, right in this area across western parts of Wisconsin into eastern parts of Minnesota. This isn't a huge snowmaker, but there could be some flakes flying. And then we turn colder here. Some ice fishers here on the channel talking all about their ice fishing, and I get it, right? So it's been a while since we've been cold, and you're getting a bit of a warm-up. So there is some colder weather on the way, and this next system may actually bring some snow into parts of Michigan, and then we do turn colder heading into January. So maybe some lake effect snow kicking back in here for the UP and also off of Lake Erie in Ontario too. Temperatures, again, we talked about them being pretty warm here. Now, I don't know how far north you are, but I mean, this is getting pretty warm here in Milwaukee, also up toward Green Bay. We're in the mid-40s. We're cracking freezing all the way up to the Canadian border, even International Falls going above freezing. But that changes as we head into the weekend. Temperatures dropping back below freezing on Saturday and into Sunday, at least at night. Some of these temperatures have been pretty mild at night, especially here across Indiana, Illinois, also into parts of Michigan. With high temperatures heading into Monday, we're starting to see some really chilly air work in. It's going to take a little while to move in, but you can see signs of that as we head into Wednesday. This would be Wednesday afternoon. Highs back in the teens. So cold weather will be returning here. Across the southern plains in the central U.S., back into the Rockies, we've got some snow here on Friday. There's your low moving towards the Great Lakes. And then as we head into Saturday, there's the severe weather with this system moving through the south, which we went over in detail. Some light snow showers and flurries across the Rockies. But it is quiet, relatively quiet, at least through Monday here across the central plains and the southern plains. An area of low pressure starting to form here across the plain states as we head into Monday. That could put some snow into South Dakota, Wyoming. It's going to definitely snow up in the mountains here into Idaho and Montana, western Montana. But some of the snow may sneak east into parts of Nebraska, also South Dakota. It's not a big snowstorm, but it could bring a little bit of snow and some much colder air behind this moving in from the north. Further to the west, there's the snow that we're looking at on Saturday, moving in here to the Cascades. It'll get heavy too, some heavy rain, wind. It feels like a broken record here. And there's your snow moving into the mountains as we head into Saturday. Another wave of rain and snow moves in as we head into Sunday. That could get really heavy here to the Cascades of Oregon, Northern California. And some of this starts to target the southern or the Sierra towards Tahoe and maybe even the southern Sierra. Not quite into Southern California or Arizona. We're staying fairly dry here as our storm track is way to the north. So snow, big snows anyway, not across Southern California or into Arizona, where you get that storm track that moves in like this. It's not what we're seeing. The storm track is way up here. If anything, that's going to amplify, I think, as we head into January, keeping the snow generally up here. Not much here for the higher elevations of Arizona and New Mexico. Several feet could fall, though, in Idaho, especially in the mountains. If you get down into the valleys, it's not anything hardly at all, but 1, 2, 3 feet of snow, maybe. Avalanches are a risk, in my opinion, especially across the west, so make sure you tune into any local forecasts or any advisories that you can get from official sources like the National Weather Service, because with this much snow, it becomes a problem. You might be snowmobiling, doing some snowshoeing, just getting out. Just be careful. All right, that's all I got for now. See ya.